Okay, it's Daima time once again, so of course we got another review to do with episode 3 of this awesome series. I made it no secret that I really enjoy Daima, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to get into the meat and potatoes with this review. However, I do need to say this one time before we start the review. If you have not seen the third episode of Daima, pause the video, go ahead and check out the episode of course, and then come on back so that way you can hopefully avoid some spoilers. Alright, now to give a brief recap so far with Daima, the last two episodes focused on a great deal of expositional content. Episode 1, if you guys recall, was introducing us to Goma and Degisu and the antagonists and their motivations, while episode 2 flipped the POV as it were and looked at Supreme Kai and the other heroes of course and what they knew about the Demon Realm and the situation at hand. And ultimately, this led to us ending off episode 2 with Goku, Glorio, and the Supreme Kai going to the Demon Realm in order to defeat King Goma, rescue Dende who was now a baby, and restore everyone back to normal. And episode 3 keeps in line with this style because as we're now heading into the Demon Realm itself, there is even more lore that we need to be introduced to, so it does its best to fulfill that duty. Also, as a brief aside, I will say this, right? As far as we know, Daima is said to have at least 20 episodes, but I am curious how many more episodes will we get that contain insane amounts of lore. Of course, you know, the Demon Realm is this area we've never been to before, so there's a lot of things to know and to learn, but also, I mean, we have a conflict to resolve, right? And of course, there are obviously other things to address, so I hope the pacing and the amount of lore given are both handled well, but this will be a very serious area of focus for Daima as a whole show in terms of trying to strike the balance between action, adventure, lore introduction, of course, and other writing elements within the full series. In any case, let's go back to the episode, and we do have several major areas to cover, but the first major area that has to be addressed is definitely Warp Sama. Now, we already knew that there is a special sort of passageway that enables travel from the Demon Realm to the outside world, right? I mean, we've seen this in the last few episodes, and as we learn in this episode, this form of transit is called Warp, or Warp Sama if you want to call it that, and it is basically a two-way route of travel between the two locations, right? The outside world and the Demon Realm, and through Glorio and Shin, right? The Supreme Kai. We actually learn a great deal about warp, including the fact that there are multiple warps at different points, so we can kind of look at it almost like a super unique space station that allows travel between realms, so, you know, nothing too crazy, but also warp can be rather sensitive as we learn, which nearly becomes an issue thanks to Goku's, you know, skills with communication. We also see more of Shin's distrust with Glorio overall, as he continues to indirectly interrogate Glorio, trying to learn more about who he is, right? But from the conversation itself, the main takeaways that we get are things that we were already able to kind of figure out beforehand, right? Such as the fact that Goma is a lot more powerful than we've seen so far, and that the third Demon King, who was the one who sent Glorio on this mission in the first place, suggests the fact that the Demon Kings are not all on the same side, though we don't exactly know who all the Demon Kings are at this point in time. Ultimately, I don't think all of these details will be truly ironed out for at least several more episodes, but still, I think it is very important that we keep track of these things because Glorio is still a new face, and for the time being, we are trusting him, but we still don't know exactly who are the good guys and who are the bad guys from the Demon Realm, so this is kind of like a weird underlying mystery right there. Back to Warp though, through his interaction with Goku and the others, we see on full display the level of sensitivity Warp has, since all it takes is for Goku to call him a goldfish to ultimately piss him off. Got him! But also what we see is how by the books it seems Warp actually is. If you guys recall from the last episode, traveling is something that's only allowed for a select few, and Warp tries to enforce this by trying to check and confirm that everyone on the ship comes from the Demon Realm by trying to make sure their ears are pointy, and thankfully, Shin is able to use his magic to help with Goku's appearance, otherwise this trip would have ended really quick. No matter though, because they managed to get through this, so we are chilling. And by the way, Shin throughout this process is relaying all of the important information to Kibito, so that will help when Kibito and the others like Vegeta eventually try to join Goku in the Demon Realm. But of course, you know, Shin, being the clutch artist that he is, fails to deliver the final most important piece of information to Kibito before they're cut off from the outside world. So, you know, thanks Shin, I always know I can count on you. But still, you know, their travels to the Demon Realm are a success, and before we even officially enter in the Demon Realm, we actually stop to see 3 different doors. Now, as we learn here, the 3 different doors actually correspond to the 3 different worlds in the Demon Realm. So the red door is for palace members of the first Demon World, such as King Goma, while the blue door is for the second Demon World, and the yellow door is for the third Demon World, which is where Goku has to go since that is the only world that Glorio has access to. And to dive deeper into this, right, it seems pretty clear at this point, just seeing this, that the 3 Demon Worlds almost act as a sort of caste system where you have royalty and all the super high rank individuals in the fancy fancy first demon world, the nobles and the decent class sort of citizens living in what's probably a very refined second demon world, and then the peasants and the bandits and all the delinquents residing in the third demon world. And while this isn't exactly reiterated word for word in the episode, we do see more statements that reinforce this sort of system being in place as we go throughout the episode itself. But from here, we can move on to the second huge focus of this episode, which is arriving in the demon realm, or more specifically, the third demon world. Now, in the third demon world, we see just a really interesting world design. I mean, the world design is so awesome, and also we get, you guessed it, more lore, including a path called the Demon Realm Tunnel. Now, this Demon Realm Tunnel actually allows for direct travel between the three worlds, but it was something that was blocked a long time ago. Now, this is something worth paying attention to in my opinion, because we may see this becoming a factor in the future, but also this means that for the time being, warp is the only means of travel between the three worlds, and as Glorio even explains beyond that, such travel even then is only allowed for first world people and a special select few from the second world. So Glorio's ability to be able to travel in the first place comes from the fact that he actually does work in the first world, even though we still have yet to know what it is that he actually does. But I mean, either way, I swear, Glorio is being written to be the combination of Han Solo and 007 sometimes, the way he's moving and the way he operates. Something also really cool is we pass by a statue of Deborah, and what's kind of interesting about this is two things for me. For one, this is clearly before he was a Majin following Babidi, as we don't see the M on his forehead, but also, I mean, his overall demeanor just makes it look like he was almost like this good or maybe even a benevolent king and not some sort of tyrant, as I always figured he actually was. But of course, I mean, to be fair, this is all based off a physical, inanimate statue, so most likely we'll come across individuals who will actually share with us what King Deborah was truly like, but this was something that was actually kind of cool to see as we were going through the episode. Throughout this process, Goku and the others start to explore the world, and while we're still getting some more lore, we also see that the environment itself is affecting Goku, making him much slower, and this is all because the air itself is very dense, so ultimately this is basically just another kind of obstacle that Goku will have to overcome. Aside from that though, we also come to learn that Shin, the Supreme Kai of course, is part of a group known as the Glint, who mostly live in the second demon world, which is kind of interesting because that kind of explains why people like the Supreme Kai and Kibito are kind of acting like semi-refined individuals when we first kind of meet them, right? So that is something right there, but also understandably, after all of this information dumping and lore dumping and whatnot, what we need now is some nice action and Goku just kicking ass, right? Which is why that's exactly what we're given. I mean, I swear, these writers are inside of my mind, they know exactly what I want to see. But now we have these bandits come in, which really allows Glorio to show off his skills, and he really does move like this slick kind of gunslinger slash brawler, and it is kind of hard to gauge how strong he is compared to Goku, but still it is nice to see what he can do, at least to some degree, so that is kind of fun right there. Ultimately though, the battle ends and the bandits who attacked are sent away, leaving us to head into what I am considering the third and the final main aspect of this episode, which is the first night in the Demon Realm. Now, Glorio decides the gang should spend a night in a nearby town before heading off to see King Kadan, who is basically the king of the third demon world, and by extension, of course, the one who sent Glorio on his mission. And within the town itself, there's not too many crazy things to observe, but what we can easily tell is this place is shady as hell. I mean, even the hotel manager is out here trying to swindle, but you know, Glorio, of course, again, being the hybrid of James Bond and Han Solo, handles business. Now, something I didn't mention quite yet is that while Glorio happens to work in the first demon world, he's actually from the third demon world, so, you know, most likely he's probably gained a lot of experience handling situations like this because of the dynamics in which he's grown up. But anyways, you know, Goku and the gang, they decide to move on to a nearby bar to grab a bite, and man, I mean, if you're a fan of Goku just cooking weaklings, this was the moment for you, because not only is Goku throwing down with the bandits who try to pick a fight with him, he's also still eating his food, right? He's actively trying to weave everyone and dodge everyone and grab his food while he's fighting, and I mean, this fight was definitely not high stakes, don't get me wrong, but it was also a very fun experience, and I do think we'll see things like this very often, so it will be fun to see what is in store for everyone in terms of the rest of the episodes. But of course, all fun things do have to come to an end though, and that is exactly what happens, because at the end of this episode, the bandits from the bar later steal Glorio's ship, and that leaves the trio to now have to figure out how they will travel to King Kadan, and that is basically the question that we're left with as the episode ultimately comes to an end. Now, overall, I would say that this episode is one that's actually grown on me over time. I mean, I watched this episode 3 times over just for this review, and, you know, the first time it was fun and all, but I didn't really feel that it was as crazy as the other 2 episodes or as important, but, I mean, now I just love this episode. It's filled actually with a lot of interesting lore. There's also, I mean, some important questions that are introduced and need to be answered, such as what is Glorio's backstory and what King Deborah was truly like, and also, of course, besides that, we had some nice action to whet our appetites and make us want more, and the combination of those three for me is more than enough that I'm going to go ahead and say that this episode is a 10 out of 10 for me personally, and of course that will now bring up our series average for Daima as a whole to 9.7. I should also probably say this, but as you all can probably tell, I typically like to give favorable scores to episodes. I don't know why that is the case, but most times an episode does a pretty good job for me in terms of enjoyment, and then it's really just me trying to find nitpicks to bring down the score. But I mean, who knows, maybe in the next few reviews I'll try to be a bit more critical in terms of my scoring system, because right now Daima keeps progressing at this really good pace, and I just want the good vibes to keep on going, and hopefully we will see them keep going in episode 4. In any case, that's going to be it for this review of Daima episode 3. If you guys enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like down below, of course, and subscribe to the channel, and comment down below, by the way, what score would you guys give for episode 3 of Dragon Ball Daima, and feel free to check out some of the other vids on the channel as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.